Para sa pangarap, tuloy ang laban. Ito ang inyong singer-composer-host ng theme song, Ang Awit ng Buhay Mo, Coach Elma D. Zuniga. Sama-sama sa TLC.
Mga ka-Life Librarians, sa Life Library, halina't makibahagi ng paghatid ng aral at saya sa bawat isa. Sa Life Library, halina't makibahagi ng inspirasyon at kalakasan sa gitna ng kabiguan at kahinaan. Sa Life Library, halina't samahan si Doc Esme. Sama-sama sa TLC.
Hello everyone! Let's enjoy this beautiful life together. Share us your story. Your story matters and your life matters to us. Sama-sama tayo sa TLC. This is Coach Dalia. God bless!
Sa hirap at ginhawa,
lungkot at ligaya,
dapat ang pamilya sama-sama sa TLC.
Hindi mo kailangang solohin ang lahat ng laban sa buhay. Sama-sama sa TLC.
Mornings will always remind us how blessed we are, because every gising is a blessing. This is Coach Des Ballesteros of Woke Up Like Des, sama-sama sa TLC.
Napakarami po natin pinagdadaanan sa mundong ito. Pero tandaan po natin na minsan lang po ang buhay. Gawin po natin makulay. Huwag na po natin dagdagan ang problema natin sa pang-araw-araw nating pamumuhay sa mundong ito. Muli po, ito po si Coach Ed na nagsasabi sa inyong sama-sama sa TLC.
Bawat buhay may pinagdaanan. Dahil ito'y parang isang gulong, kung minsan nasa ilalim, kung minsan naman nasa ibabaw. Subalit ng lahat ng ito'y ating malalampasan sama-sama sa TLC.
The views and opinions expressed by the host do not necessarily state or reflect those of the company and its management. Furthermore, the views and opinions of the guest do not reflect those of the host, the show, the management, and the network.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. It's Saturday in the evening, once again, 8:30. And you are with me, Dr. Eva Aranas Angel, in Kuwentong Alzheimer's at iba pa here in Talk Life Channel. This is Season 1, Episode 7. This topic for tonight is one of those topics that are put on the wayside or altogether not being talked about. So it's elderly abuse and other legal issues. On the 18th Congress of the House of Representatives' third regular session, the House Committee on Population and Family Relations has approved a substitute bill seeking to protect senior citizens from violence. House Bill 7030, or the Anti-Elder Abuse Act, provides penalties for abuses against the elderly, and the acts that constitute abuse include physical violence, psychological or emotional, and economic or domestic violence, and neglect or abandonment. The likely result of such act may be physical or psychological harm, or emotional and suffering, distress, or neglect, including threats of such acts, battery, physical assault, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. In my clinical practice, I have been requested countless times for a neuropsychological evaluation to establish a patient's competence because of material exploitation through legal or improper use of funds or resource of the senior citizen, or financial abuse through acts that makes the senior citizen financially dependent. Um, this episode would also discuss the legal implications of a patient with a probable dementia engaging in legal transactions like a sale of a property or donation of a property. In my introduction of the guest, it is difficult to introduce the guest without me in it. Our guest speaker, or our guest for tonight, obtained his BS journalism degree from the University of the Philippines in Diliman and his law degree from the University of the Philippines College of Law. Shortly after passing the bar, he worked at Puno and Puno Law Office in Tactay Towers in Ortigas and in Castillo Zamora Poblador in Makati City. He has always taken pride in being Ortigas trained and Makati bred. Having married someone from Davao, that's me, he came home and worked as a law professor specializing in criminal law, criminal procedure, and also as a bar reviewer in criminal law, concurrently working as a prosecutor in the Office of the Ombudsman in Mindanao. He has also lectured in Mandatory Continuing Legal Education, or MCLE. He had a short stint as a city prosecutor before he decided to engage in private practice. As a doctor, I haven't had a clue that my career may be intertwined with his. In 2010, I moderated a session on elder abuse just when the Republic Act 9994 was signed into law, and it is also known as the Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2010, or SCAP 2010, and he was one of the panelists. In 2014, I was an expert witness for a patient whose arraignment we were contesting on account of his dementia before the Sandigan Bayan Tax Appeals Court. Our guest was the counsel for the accused, where he conducted a direct examination on me as the expert witness. In the latter part of the same year, in 2014, we had a back-to-back lecture on the invitation of the Philippine Medical Association Southern Mindanao chapter. And tonight, 8 years after, to face the audience, but like not side by side, but face to face and on screen and virtual, to give you updates on the laws on elderly abuse and other legal issues that have to do with dementia, and 10 years after the Republic Act 9994 was signed, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome, and I hope he doesn't sing kahit maputi na ang buhok ko, please welcome Attorney Teddy V. Angel.
Good evening, everyone. No, it is a pleasure and honor being a guest here tonight. No, but honestly, not on my own free will, but more under some form of duress. You know why? I was informed about this only 2 days ago. But the marching orders coming from your better half, you'd better follow, or else I might be held in contempt or say emotional abuse under VAUSI. As far as know, there's no husband violence yet. But seriously, I it is a pleasure, an honor being here, and there will be an intertwining of medicine and law, okay, especially under the abuse, and we look forward to an interesting night, and we hope that at the end of this episode, we've learned something and be better enlightened on under the abuse, the sanctions, the penalties, and the protection provided by law in order to ensure the well-being of our elderly, a marginalized sector of society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Angel. I would like to inform you that our format tonight will be case based using vignettes of some of the family problems and issues that I have seen in my practice and perhaps from some of the viewers' experiences or even in their own family. And after which, questions from me and our viewers will be encouraged, and you can write in the comment box if you like. If pwede Tagalog or he made a special request kung pwede wag lang daw Bisaya, but please by all means you can do Bisaya and I can translate it for him, and it will be answered by our guest. But before that, we will pause for a commercial break with our brand partners, and we will be back with Attorney Angel.
Stay active and feeling bagets, I drink Nestle Boost Optimum para ang muscles malakas, pati immunity at digestive health ko.
Nestle Boost Optimum, lakas mga bagets.
Buy 2, save 400 pesos.
Thank you to Torrent Pharma, not just healthcare, but life care.
Okay, we are back, Attorney Angel. Like I said, we will be having case vignettes. So, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
All right. So, I have a first vignette. Our first story for our vignette involves a widower who married a young wife more than 20 years younger than he is. And this being the case, one of the sons took forcibly the ATM of the older person, his father, which constitutes his pension. And because he alleged that the second wife had a checkered past that included vices, drinking spree in the house, and partying, too much partying. The wife alleges that the son spends the money on his son's college education. There seems to be a mudslinging from either side. The wife goes to the son every month to ask for support for the father, and she thought that she's like begging for something that belongs to his husband, or that belongs to her husband in the first place. So the question is, as a lawyer, how would you protect the interest of the father?
Doctor, I would like to ask, where is the father? Who has custody of the father at present?
Oh, they're together with the wife. He lives together with the
And
wife.
the son lives in a separate house.
In a separate
I
household.
presume.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the same municipality or the same town.
Okay, very well. Well, under the circumstances, the father lives with the young wife who takes care of his needs. And what should she do, considering that the son forcibly took the ATM, their source of support, and were widowed? As a lawyer, I would suggest that he would have to go through the process of barangay conciliation first. He would go to the barangay and make a complaint asking for the return of the ATM, which legally belongs to the father, and there will be at least 5 or 6 conciliation meetings. Unfortunately, the prospect of settlement here is nil. So if there's no settlement, then the next step is that the barangay issues a certificate to file action, indicating that earnest efforts have been exerted, but no settlement was reached. After this, he can attach this, the wife can attach this to his petition in court. It must be elevated to the court, and she can ask, she can file a petition to be appointed as administrators of the property with a prayer that the ATM be returned to the father and to her by way of a mandatory injunction. They call it a mandatory injunction.
Okay, that's it. So,
That's it. That's it.
barangay conciliation first, and if nothing comes out of it, the wife can file a case. Am I
Yes.
correct? All right. So,
You
despite
cannot go
allegations,
directly to court because the case may be dismissed for prematurity and failure to state a cause of action. Because in cases involving families, it has been indicated in a complaint, the petition, that earnest efforts are being exerted but to no avail. Otherwise, it's premature. Mhm.
all right, okay, you came in loud and clear. So, despite allegations of a checkered past, which the wife denies, wouldn't the law also favor the wife in this case? Because, for all intents and purposes, being
Well,
legally
okay, the
wedded or
allegations of the
being,
son of a checkered past are mere
she's
allegations. They're
entitled
not
to
proof
50%.
or admissible in court, no, unless they are filed in court and proven. But the court would always take into account if this ripens into a case, the primordial consideration being always the best interest of the elderly, which in this case, the circumstances apparently is being with a young wife who takes care of him, their wherewithal, and yet is being given a hard time by the son who refuses to give the ATM and spends it for the son's education, which is not the responsibility of the grandfather anymore.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, in this
what
particular
else?
case, does the son have a criminal liability and a civil liability by taking the they practically were like having a tug of war, getting the ATM, thereby making the older person or the couple financially dependent on the son.
Mm. Yes, the son can be sued and be held criminally liable for grave coercion because he literally took the law into his own hands and by force. No, he compelled the wife or the father to surrender the ATM to him, and he does not have any court order or the legal authority. That's grave coercion. Not only that, worse, he can be held liable for robbery, which is the taking of a personal property belonging to another by use of force or intimidation or violence. Now, is it not that if it's a crime against property like theft, qualified theft, and stuff, there's no criminal liability? Yes, in these cases because they are successors in interest. They are compulsory heirs, but the law makes an exception in case of robbery, wherein a son takes the property, personal property of the father, like for instance an ATM by use of force, then he can be sued for robbery and convicted. And the penalty there is high. It's around 12 years and 1 day to 20 years.
So that's non-probationable. He has to serve time. Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned about the civil liability,
Yeah,
Doctora, you asked.
I
Yes,
did. I did.
of course, the
What
civil
civil liability?
liability The civil liability would include actual damages, meaning the amount of money he took by force and without legal authority. You call that restitution. Ibabalik niya yung pera ng father niya na hindi naman sa kanya. Okay? Then he can be held liable for moral damages for the sleepless nights and anxiety caused to the father, including the young wife. No?
Actually, that comes with
And
delayed examinations or delayed checkups because they didn't have the money. They just had to contend with whatever amount the son would give them.
yes. Okay, especially if there's their only source of wherewithal, and of
That
course,
was
the most
wow.
important would be attorney's fees. Attorney's fees means the court awards money for litigation expenses, but that will go to the lawyer. So that it's really best to settle things at the level of the barangay because if it ripens into full blown litigation, it becomes more expensive. There will be actual damages, moral damages, this called exemplary damages, if it is really attended with bad faith, no, and attorney's fees and litigation expenses.
All right. Well, Jill, do we have questions from the audience with regard to this case? Maybe there's someone similarly situated. There's none. Wala, Jill, no? Okay. We have someone from. I need my glasses. Erlinda Españo. That is one of the Villotas, I guess. Good evening, Doc Eva and Attorney Teddy, watching from our fan, the Villotas from Santo Tomas. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Erlinda. All right, there you go. Si Tony tayo naka-attend ng Villote Clan reunion. Thanks for watching. Okay, I think that would be all for this vignette. And we have another case vignette, Attorney Angel. Am I still coming in clear? Am I still coming in clear? Can you still hear me, Attorney Ted?
Again, yes, I can hear it loud and clear, Doctor.
Attorney Angel, am I still
Although
coming
there
in
is
clear?
some interruption. Okay.
All right, okay. So we are going to have our second vignette.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? We are going to have our second vignette, Attorney Angel.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like we have poor connection. So, in any case, I'll just say, are you okay now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Our second case involves an 88-year-old patient left to the caregiver, full unfettered caregiver, and all of the children, all the older children are abroad, but only one daughter, elderly daughter also, is left in Davao. Now the daughter visited randomly and examined the CCTV. She realized that the food ration is finished because you know what the caregiver would do. The caregiver would cup the face like this and force the mouth open and force also the tablespoon with the food inside the mouth of the elderly. And then if the elderly doesn't open the mouth, she would flick with the fingers the mouth and the lips and the face of the elderly. And more than just that, if the patient doesn't open the mouth, then she would also be pinched. And these were all caught on CCTV. Now, there are other cases of physical abuse, like if the patient refuses to take a bath, she would pinch. The caregiver was very sinister. She would pinch the elderly back of the head or the nape or the neck because that's one area which is not very obvious. So I would like to address the public that the skin of the older person basically is very thinned out and friable. And some of them, especially if they're on blood thinners, and even if you just hold them right here without meaning any harm, because you just want to hold them and protect them or give them balance, sometimes there would already be bruising. So in examining older patients that you suspect of having been abused physically, please try to look for suspicious marks in the other parts of the body, and especially those that are hidden. And they usually would do it at the back of the neck, in the nape, or anything that's covered by hair. So please look into those places as well. And this was what the caregiver did, but it was caught on CCTV. Now the daughter now realized that they had a problem. So she fired the caregiver. They went to the police station, but the police in the police station they were looking for an elderly desk, but there was just the women and children's desk, and there was a VAUSI desk. But the response of the police was, at the time, get a medical legal certificate from a government hospital. And this happened pre-pandemic pa naman, no? And we have a very frail and immunocompromised older
I know,
person.
Atty.
For all my love of SPMC, we need to admit that somehow it would not be prudent to bring the older patient in the ER just for a medical legal. So what they did was just, you know, did not pursue the case. What they did was to just uh, what they did was to delist the
Sinawagan.
caregiver from the remove the caregiver from the list of accredited caregivers from the roster of TESDA. So they thought that it was victory enough for them, but only to learn that this same caregiver was able to work in Panabo. So the question is, apparently, uh, the older person wasn't given the justice she deserved, and yet this family member or this older person is an A-lister. They belong to the elite and the high society. So what pains me in this situation, because she was my patient, is that she wasn't given the justice she deserved. So what could they have done differently, attorney? Having gone to the police
Well,
station
the
and
first,
then
yes, from analysis to the situation, it is clear that they did things on themselves. What they should have had done
yeah,
first was to have consulted a lawyer, and the lawyer would advise them exactly what to do. If the lawyer accompanies them to the police station where they had difficulty making a blot of the incident, the presence of the lawyer would make all the difference. Because we are public officers, officers of the court, we have to be attended to. Now, that is the problem. Because I've gone to the police station a lot of times, usually drugs cases, and there is, I could see a special desk for VAUSI, Violence Against Women, for children, but there is no desk, special desk for the elderly. Under House Bill 7030 of 2019, that was the proposal. But until now, it has not been passed into law. It's in the House Bill on third reading. So that has to be addressed. Now, what they could do in order to secure justice is that since they have the CCTV, then they could download the CCTV and attach it to the complaint, and they can file for maltreatment and physical abuse, no, against
attorney,
the
question interrupt, attorney.
any caregiver. Mm. Yeah,
Um,
sure.
um, you mentioned about the CCTV. Does it have a does it have an evidentiary how do you call it? Does it have an evidentiary value, considering that
Mm-mm.
anyone can allege that CCTV may have been tampered or can be tampered with?
Mm-mm. Well, it has been done time and again. I have had cases wherein we use the CCTV. It just has to be authenticated by the police authorities. It is admissible. Mm.
Admissible. All right. Okay. But the
Mm.
burden of proof or in proving that the CCTV is authentic will have to come from
The best.
the
Wala na eh. Mm-mm.
the caregiver or
Ay, wala. open mo daw. Baka mas clear kung open mo. Yung, wala.
Okay. Did you hear the attorney? Did you hear the question?
No, I can hear you.
I asked if the
I can hear you
burden of,
now. What's the next question, Doc?
yeah. No, I asked if the burden of proving the the burden of proving the authenticity of the CCTV footages would come from the family or from the caregiver.
Again, the authenticity that has be left to the authorities. Usually, it is the NBI who would authenticate the CCTV,
Oh,
not
so
just
it's a
the
third
private
party.
company who
You're
installed
saying.
it, because it is self-serving.
So you're saying it has to be a third party, attorney, neutral.
Any questions,
We're
Doc?
losing the connection. Wala. Anyway, okay. What sanctions under the law can be imposed on the caregiver in order to avoid similar incidents of elderly abuse? Because you know how families are so
The
dependent on
sanction that can be
caregivers these
imposed
days
against the
because they're busy
caregiver.
at work. Yeah. What sanction?
Yes. Okay, I heard you. Yeah. First, they could report it to the Department of Labor, no, and allege that and report the CCTV and the incidents, execute an affidavit in order to declare her as indesirable, and as a warning to other employers. You could also go to the POAA in order to blacklist her so she wouldn't be able to go abroad. Of course, another option is to file for physical injuries and maltreatment. In maltreatment, under House Bill 7030, uh, any physical abuse committed against the elderly becomes an aggravating circumstance. So, say for maltreatment, in this case, where the penalty is 6 years and 1 day to 12 years, instead of putting it at the minimum of 6 years and 8 years, or the median of 8 years to 10 years, it will be placed as an aggravating circumstance and set at 10 years and 1 day to 12 years. But the problem is, it's still a House bill. No, what we
Yeah.
have now, although it's really a welcome development, is RA 9994, the expanded Senior Citizens Act, no,
That
of
was 2010.
2010 yet. After that,
But it
there's no
doesn't have an
legislation, I understand,
IRR. It doesn't
which really
have
provides protection to ample protection to elderly.
implementing rules and regulations against. Attorney, can I just summarize what you answered with regard to the sanction about the caregiver? First, you said that she can be reported to the Department of Labor and the local under local laws, so she will be blacklisted from being employed. And the second is that she can also be reported to the POEA in case she goes
Yes.
out of the country to work as a caregiver abroad. And the third item that you mentioned has something to do with the
File a
penalties,
complaint for physical
wherein
injuries.
the age of the patient under House Bill. Yes, attorney, but that's under House Bill 7030, which has yet to be enacted into a law. Uh, Under that, she is already liable to getting a harsher punishment than when she would do something similar to a younger individual. Because, like he said the penalty is 12 years
Aggravating
and
circumstance.
1 day. As, yes, as against the 6 months that's probationable and lesser among younger set when it comes to physical injury. Is my summary correct? We have to excuse him. He just recovered from pneumonia. Are you still there, Attorney Angel? Jill, can we just pause for a commercial break and we will be back when we will have his connection.
This program would like to thank partners in plastic surgery, room S510, 4th floor, Health, Science and Wellness Building, MDMRC Hospital, Bahada, Davao City. Telephone number 0932-880-8490.
Stay active and feeling bagets, I drink Nestle Boost Optimum para ang muscles malakas, pati immunity at digestive health ko.
Nestle Boost Optimum, lakas makabagets.
Buy 2, save 400 pesos.
This show would like to thank Tacovid Superbio, the natural vitamin E.
Okay. He's back. Attorney Angel. Okay. Well, we are trying to fix their connection, Attorney Angel. I think we would like to read some of the comments from our viewers for tonight. We have Dr. Shana Spanyola. Good evening po. Given that the patient was able to procure a medical certificate at a later date, even without identifying marks mentioned by the doctor, is it still valid to use as an evidence in court? Oh, you have a question, Attorney Angel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I saw I see the question.
Yeah. So the question is that belatedly they were able to get the medical certificate that was required, but without the identifying marks anymore, because the bruising could disappear in a few weeks. So is it still valid to be used as an evidence in court? Can I just say
you talk
because there's CCTV
again. Can it still be admissible?
Yeah. Is the medical certificate
Is the medical certificate still valid?
Even without the physical stigma of abuse.
Okay. Can I be heard, Doc? Can I now be heard?
Yeah. You're coming in clear, Attorney.
Okay. Can I answer now?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Raya, dito ka muna.
You can read the question. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the question again, Attorney? The question is that the patient was able to procure a medical certificate at a later date, but the stigma of abuse, like the bruising, is no longer there. Is it still valid to be used as an evidence in court? I think we're losing the signal naman though. Um, hold on. What's going on with the LDT? We will answer that later. Can we just go on with the other Jel? Can we go on with the other comments that we have in our chat box? Hi, love, Leah. Thank you so much for watching. That's in my heart. Thank you. And Irene, Jeanette, Suela, Kasha. Good evening, Irene. Good evening. Hi, good evening, Dr. Evan, Attorney Ted, watching with the whole family. Okay, so that would mean Patty, Joseph, and Joshua, and you, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you. Raquel, my cousin in Matina. Good evening, Doc Eva and Attorney Ted. Ano ba, Raquel? Ate ako. And then Cess Ruiz Lee. Good evening, Doctora and Attorney Ted. And what else? We're trying to see if the connection is fixed. Sweetheart, are you sorry, Attorney? Is it okay? Can you hear now?
Yes, yes. What about the earlier question? I can answer
Yeah,
it
the
now.
earlier question
Will
was
the
there's a
medical
medical
certificate be
certificate.
valid? Okay.
Yes, but
Well,
the physical stigma is no longer there.
That would be as regards the physical injuries, is it not?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
contusions, the abrasions.
Yeah.
Well, this has to be qualified. No? Ideally, a medical certificate should be issued by a government hospital, public hospital like SPMC. It would have greater evidentiary value than a private medical certificate, which they say would be paid in order to get one. So first, if it comes from a government hospital, then it would be given greater weight in terms of evidence, in terms of evidentiary weight. However, it is also ideal that the medical certificate be taken as near as the date when the crime was supposedly committed,
We're still having
because
problems
if
with
it's
the connection.
the physical injuries were sustained in 2019, for instance, and the medical certificate was issued in 2020, obviously there would be no
Having
more
trouble connecting.
evidence of the
Okay.
physical injuries except the allegations. The same applies in rape, especially. um, what evidence would you have if the assuming that the victim say is a virgin, but it was taken a year or two after? What can you prove that the perpetrators, alleged perpetrators, were really the one who committed the crime? So the longer the time from the commission of the crime and the taking of the medical certificate, the less weight in terms of evidence would the medical certificate be. But it is still admissible. The problem is how strong is the weight in terms of evidence. It's not gonna be very strong. The longer the time frame, the lesser the evidentiary weight.
Okay. So we're getting the kernel idea of what you were saying.
Yung anong aircon? Kasi off. Kasi nag-off. Kasi nag-boot. Ay, nag-boot.
But saying the sooner the medical certificate, the guiding the complaint. Basically, that's what I get from what he was saying. So, in addition to this, is that we have the CCTV, and he said evidentiary nature of the CCTV as a material for proving the incident of and also mistreatment or maltreatment. Okay, so
Ray. Okay na. Mabalik.
the attention of PLDT, can you do something about your fiber because you're charging us a lot? Attorney Angel, so can we move on to the next?
Okay.
Joel,
I'm
is
here.
there
I'm here.
anything? Yeah, Joel, is there anything else? Aside from the question of Dr. Espanola, I hope Dr. Sean, it was already answered. I answered it for you.
No more. I'd prefer to go to the next because probably we're running out of time, because there's a problem with the connection.
It's okay, sweetheart.
And we go
I'm
to the
gonna
next
touch.
vignette if possible.
Okay, the next vignette, our third and last vignette, has something to do with an older. Can you hear me, attorney? Yeah, our third and last vignette has something to do with an older patient whose deed of donation to his loyal and trusted caretaker was being challenged by his 5 children. In the deed of donation, the children, they know that he has mild to moderate dementia because I was the one who did the neuropsychological evaluation. And the elderly father gave 30 hectares of his 100 hectares of his farm to the family of the tenant who took care of him in the farm in his latter years, and another 20 hectares to his favorite religious congregation who's been taking care of his spiritual needs. Now, this donation is being contested by his 5 children because they thought that the donation was made by their father already when he had the dementia. And at the very least, it was a very excessive donation as a gratitude for taking care of the patient. So the family alleged that he was being exploited, and because some of the examples that they gave was he was asked to give lechon during fiestas. He was asked to be sponsors for to be a sponsor for basketball games and tournaments in their barangay. So they have 100 hectares, and only 50 hectares were left to the family, divided by 5. So that means that each child only has 10 hectares. So what happens is that the tenant gets more than the children. So this is the problem, and this is the resentment of the children. So the question is, what legal remedy can the 5 children do over the inefficacious or excessive donation which the family thought that the tenant didn't deserve? Have you entered the studio? Yeah, but not in the frame. Gel, can we put him in the frame? He's not in the frame. Angel, can we put him in the frame? He has someone who's assisting him. Yaya Rhea, can you enter studio? Enter studio. We're having problems with the connection. We're using this one. Okay. I think we're going to use another gadget. Yeah. Sorry. Enter studio. So they're using a laptop now. They're using. All right. Yeah, the show must go on. This is what happens when it's live, but we apologize for the connection. We sometimes there are just things that we can't control, and it's just too bad it happened now. Cherry Villote. Hi, Cherry. Good evening, and thank you for watching. Hope you're okay. Thank you. Shanna, the question was answered, right? Okay, thank you. And do we have some more that people may have written on our chat box? Osang, yeah, my family from the Arana side in Matina. Good evening. Masarap yung barbecue niya. And then Noylene, hello. Oh, you're watching on YouTube. Yes, we are also available on YouTube. Thank you for watching on YouTube. You will add to our number of viewers on YouTube. Paki-like na rin. And Novi, hello Novi. Are you requesting for a shout out? Thank you, Not for always watching. And yeah, Noylene. Where's your partner in crime? Santi. Suligaw na naman. Ate Aida, good evening. Sorry about the technical difficulty. Now they're trying it with a cell phone now. Because the cell phone is Globe. We're using Smart. We have PLDT fiber. I don't know what's going on. We have someone in the chat. Yeah, all right. Are you okay now? Yeah. Wala siyang data. Si Santi, sana nag-donate na data. Anyway. Alright, magtabi na lang kaya kami, ano? Puntahin mo na lang siya dito. Hindi ka. Yeah. So like I said, I thought it's not gonna be side by side, but it will have to be side by side right now. But you don't have signal.
Yeah. Okay,
so you have to sit beside me.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, the question is, we're on the third vignette. Can you just look at the camera?
Okay, thank you.
There you go. Can you move over? You're so huge. There you go.
Yeah.
Wait.
Have you read the vignette already?
I have. Hold it.
Huh?
Yeah, I have.
So the question, what are the questions?
Move over. Right here. Near me. There
Okay.
So, I read can I just read the vignette again? We have, I think you have, we have it on the ticker box. So I read the vignette wherein the donation was being contested by the 5 children because the tenant ended up having more than the family members. So each child would get 10 hectares, but the tenant who took care of the father would get 30 hectares. So the question here is, what legal remedy can the 5 children do over the inefficacious or excessive donation which the family thought that the tenant didn't deserve? So what's your answer?
Okay.
You have to speak louder.
So what is the question? What is the legal remedy?
Yeah, for the 5
Okay.
children.
In this case, the 5 children can challenge the donation by way of filing again a petition for revocation of the donation in court. They can allege in support of their complaint for the revocation donation was that the father had a slight, mild, moderate dementia, and therefore the donation was done under duress or under intimidation or undue influence.
Attorney, pa-interrupt. When you said that the donation was done under duress, that's conjectural, right?
Yes, that's precisely what I'm trying to drive at next. Is that the burden of proof would rest on the children to prove that he was really suffering from dementia, because the presumption under the law is that donation is valid. It is done voluntarily out of gratitude to the caregiver, caretaker, and the presumption is sanity, not insanity. The one who alleges insanity must prove by expert witness that the father indeed suffered from mild moderate dementia. Otherwise, the court will sustain the donation as valid.
Okay, so we don't have a problem with that one, okay? You need to be in the frame. Move over.
Okay, what else?
Oh, no. Like here. I'll move over.
Okay.
There you go.
What else?
You should sanay eh. Okay, on the other hand, what can the tenant caregiver do to sustain and put into effect the donation? Because, of course, he's given 30 hectares, and who doesn't want 30 hectares? So he's trying to contest as well that this was given to me because I've been a loyal tenant. I've been taking care of him physically and all the other needs of the older persons, which actually improve the patient's quality of life. Okay, there you go.
Well, the tenant can, of course, prove through so many witnesses that the donation is valid. No, if it's a donation, inter vivos, meaning that was done and in effect during the lifetime of the elderly, then he can present the elderly and show that it was done voluntarily, and the court will determine whether or not he has dementia or is still in full control of his mental faculties. You present the notary public who prepared the document and notarized. You present the witnesses to the execution of the public instrument by way of deed of donation. Because you cannot transfer a real property by way of deed of donation if it's not a notarized document. You can also secure witnesses, neighbors, to prove that it was the caregiver or caretaker who was taking care of the father, and that the children just went their own separate lives, virtually abandoned the father, and now kept insisting on their share because the father has 100 hectares. Okay.
And been giving away.
Yes, but we have to qualify also. The donation must not be inefficacious. And what does inefficacious mean? It means that the father, when he gives the donation of 30 hectares to the caregiver and 10 hectares to the religious organization, that is one half.
So we're talking about the legitimate.
Yet in his estate, one half is the free portion he can give to anyone, but the other half, they call that the legitimate, is reserved by law to the compulsory heirs. So if that is the case, then the 30 hectares being given to the caregiver falls within what is allowed by law, because that belongs to the free portion. But if given to the caregiver or caretaker would be 70 hectares, you call that inefficient already. because that means that the other heirs, compulsory heirs, no, which the law seeks to protect, would be their legitimate would be impaired
Yeah.
or compulsory share, and that would be inefficient. They call that preterition, meaning
Okay.
you are excluded from your share, and that donation can be challenged in court, and most likely the the donation will not be completely revoked, but the 20 hectares will be given to the children, the 30 hectares to the tenant or caregiver, and the 30 hectares to the religious organization. It will be sustained.
The legitimate basically preserved, right? You stay in the frame.
Again,
You stay in the frame, right? So, judge, how would you? You're the
judge.
judge, yeah.
If there were if I were a judge and it's a deed of donation inter vivos during the lifetime, or if it were a deed of donation mortis causa, meaning it will take effect upon the death, which is akin to a last will and testament, I will examine both sides. The children here would be the petitioner. I will challenge whether or not they would took care of the father. I will also interview the. I will also examine the expert witness of the children who would allege that the father is suffering from slight dementia. On the other hand, I will also observe as a judge the father himself, if he's still alive, if the donation inter vivos. I will examine the witnesses, the caregiver, and I will also observe the notary public who executed the instrument and notarized the same. In other words, it will be the totality of evidence. The totality of evidence. Where does it preponderate? Let's call that preponderance of evidence. Does it preponderate in favor of the children who are the petitioners in the probate of the will or in the who are challenging the donation, or does it weigh heavily more in favor of the caregiver or caretaker who took care of the elderly for so many years? So you must weigh the evidence, and the best way to weigh the evidence is to actually observe. That is why the appellate courts give credence to the testimony in the lower court. The evidence taken there is deemed valid and presumed to be unassailable because the judge was able to observe. That's why if you go up on appeal, what only you can challenge would be errors of law, no?
Well,
But not errors of
can
fact.
I interrupt? You said something about preponderance of evidence, so you're trying to say that this is actually a civil case and not a criminal case.
Yes, it's
civil
a
case.
civil.
Preponderance of
It's a
evidence.
civil case. If it's a donation, no. If it's a revocation of donation, but if it's a probate of will, like a last will and testament, they call it more of a special proceedings, but they are basically the same. The amount of evidence required is preponderance of evidence.
All right.
Unlike in criminal cases, if you need to secure a conviction, you need proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Oh yeah, that's for the criminal case. Now, I handled this case, or I was an expert witness for this case, and fortunately, this was actually everything was above board, and
About?
above board, everything was
Correct.
above board,
Okay.
and so the tenant was able to get his 30 hectares, and I think that is not so bad for someone who's been taking care of the older person, and for the children who actually abandoned their parent and only went there when they learned that he was getting sick and getting frail, and were there to get their share. Okay, so I think this is the last vignette we have, Attorney Angel.
Yet,
So
I'd like to point out also
would
that
you like
if
to
the
look at the camera?
if the caregiver or caretaker commits acts of ingratitude after he was given 30 hectares, he abandons the old man or does not support or doesn't take care of him anymore, there is also a remedy. That's what you call a revocation of the deed of donation. It can be done through an affidavit of revocation of donation, but if the caregiver challenges it, then it would have to ripen into a case wherein the old man would file a petition or complaint for the revocation of donation on grounds of acts of ingratitude.
Okay. So, pwedeng bawiin yung donation.
Again?
Pwedeng bawiin ang donation. You're
Yes, by
saying that
acts. Oh.
the donation was qualified only if parang the loyalty and then the care, the TLC that they were giving him continues.
Even children can be disinherited. You call it, you can file a petition in court for disinheritance because of, say, acts of ingratitude,
Yeah.
no support,
You
or
mean
a
his
crime
biological children?
committed by the children against the father or the mother.
Yeah.
So if a child can be disinherited with greater reason, would deed of donation be revoked at the instance of the donor.
No, but you're talking of the disinherited, diba? So you're talking of the heirs. So because they have been negligent, even if they're part of the legitimate and they are the legitimate heirs, could they be disinherited?
They're entitled to legitimate, but
Yeah, I know.
what I'm saying is they can still be disinherited.
Yeah.
You can file an complaint in court detailing that there were acts, for instance, acts on the life of the elderly, or abandonment, or acts of maltreatment, elderly abuse, physical abuse. That would be a ground for disinheritance also. In the same way that the donation can be revoked, even a son or a daughter can be disinherited.
All right.
But it has to be a judicial declaration.
I thought you look at the camera.
It has to be a judicial declaration.
Okay.
An affidavit most likely will not be enough.
Okay. So this is all the time we have for now, Attorney Angel. Thank you so much for sitting with us, and we apologize for the technical difficulties. This is beyond our control. All right. So would you like to say something to them?
Again, it's a pleasure being here tonight, and it's really. I'm sorry. We're sorry that there were technical difficulties, but still and all, I think we're able to deliver the essential points. No, that there's now a law. There is a law, RA 9994.
Yes,
and
SCAP
that
2010.
is a 2010 expanded
Yes, Senior Citizens Act.
Act of 2010, giving 20% discount and exemption from VAT. No, and this even applies to balikbayan, no, dual citizenship, having resided in the
Even
Philippines
foreigners.
for 6 months.
Yeah.
So this is very all-encompassing because this includes not only food, clothing, shelter, but also transportation, even barbershops, no, all kinds of goods and services. But the problem is, after that, I haven't seen a new law, which would, especially the Anti-Elder Abuse Act, which is House Bill 7030. There has to be a political will to have this passed during the next administration to afford greater protection to our elderly. No, it's a sign of gratitude for having taken care of us. It is now our role, no, a reversal of role, to take care of them, and that would be through legislation, and that would be through lobbying in Congress. We all take a concerted
Congress, because Congress has already been passed.
again.
It has already passed the third reading. So what we now need is something similar in the upper house.
It will still
in the
take
Senate.
time. If the third reading, it will be still brought to the Senate. The Senate will have their own version, and there's going to be a joint bicameral committee between the House version and the Senate version. And after it's approved, it will be brought to the president, who will sign it or veto it.
He will sign
If
it,
he vetoes it, then he can be overturned by 2/3 vote. You know? So it takes time. So that's why there's a need for political will, for pressure, for lobbying, so that the welfare of our elderly will be better protected, not only by House Bill 7030, which exists more in theory, but it has to be implemented into real law so that better protection will be afforded to the elderly.
Okay, so with that, thank you very much, Attorney Angel.
Yes.
You need to rest. Okay?
Thank you.
Go have your rest. Go to sleep now.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, are you staying or you're going to rest now? Are you
Okay.
gonna rest? Go to the.
What?
Are you gonna? You need to
Parting
rest.
note? Parting note?
You already said it.
I
So
already said.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so
It's a pleasure being here, and I hope we learned something tonight, and we to further, the welfare of our elderly, one of the marginalized sectors of our society.
okay, thank you very much. So yeah, you can leave the frame now if you like, so you can rest. Mainit dito. Stay where it's more cool. It's colder in there. Okay, so you want to stay? So you will stay. Okay. Now, this is all the time we have for now. Sana po ay naging makabuluhan po sa inyo ang episode na ito. Maraming salamat po sa ating sa aking panauhin na medyo actually pinilit ko po, recover niya lang po. At agad-agad naman siyang pumayag na maging guest sa ating napaka-importanteng paksa na may kinalaman sa pagproteksyon ng ating nakatatanda. Ibibigay ko lang po yung timeline kasi may binigay siyang timeline kanina. Pupunuan ko lang po. He started with SCOP 2010. That's the Expanded Senior Citizens Act. And what I remember is that was one of the last Republic Acts signed by Gloria Macapagal Arroyo before she was ousted. And it was sponsored by Noli de Castro. And then after that, there was nothing. And in fact, we found that RA 9994 kulang, no? Because actually there was nothing there that would deal with anti-elderly abuse. Thanks for that. And so what happened was in 2016, there was a bill sponsored by the late Miriam Defensor Santiago of anti-elderly abuse. So unfortunately, she passed on, and along with her, also her bill was buried under so many other bills and so many other scandals in the succeeding administrations. So what happened was in 2017, the Commission on Human Rights, through the commissioner, again, to Chito, Jose Luis Miguel Chito Gascon, the CHR then commissioner, had a position paper against anti-elder abuse bill. And that was actually the House Bill 7030. And the DSWD, upon seeing the third reading of the draft of the House Bill 7030, also made their position paper. However, the entire first page, just contained definition of terms or changing of the names. But there was one thing there that struck me, that they actually wanted to have sort of a desk in the police station. So they wanted to call it a New Haven desk. So, and they want this to be a dedicated desk for older persons. And in 2018, the House Bill 7030 came to the picture, and the sponsor was Representative Victoria. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to look into which district he actually comes from, but definitely not from Davao. No one from Davao has sponsored a bill for older persons. Sorry ha, some of them are your friends. Now, at nailathala po ito noong 2020. So katulad po ng nabanggit ni Attorney Angel, mas matindi po ang parusang pagkakulong sa elderly abuse dahil naging aggravating circumstance po ito dahil po sa kultura natin ay nagbibigay po tayo ng pagpapahalaga sa ating mga nakatatanda. Kaya po, maging mapanuri, mapagmasid, at maging mapagmasid po tayo sa mga kandidatong tumatakbo at titingnan po natin ang mga plataforma, lalong-lalo na po yung mga tumatakbo sa Senado para sana po ay may mga magagawa silang pangako para sa kapakanan ng mga nakatatanda. So they can always promise all they want, but that's how they always do it during the campaign. But if they will make good on their promise. So we probably should be listening to their debates. Now, as of the moment, there is no counterpart to the House Bill 7030 in the upper house or in the Senate. So maraming salamat po sa mga kamag-anakan ng napakalaking pamilya ng mga anghel sa Davao at sa Cebu. Dahil alam ko po, full force po kayo kapag nandyan ang baby ng pamilya, this one. Ang pamilyang Villote po, all over the world. At ang mga, lalong-lalo na po, yung mga taga Santo Tomas, salamat po. At mga kaibigan, estudyante, katrabaho ni Atty. Angel, kasamahan niyo po sa apartment si Atty. J.R. Borgoña at ang kanyang may bahay na si Dr. Jeanette. Thank you for watching. Salamat. Borgie Boy, namimiss ka na ni Teddy Boy. So, I hope that one of these days we'll see each other. And then, ang mga kaibigan ko po na sumasubaybay sa bawat kabanata ng aming buhay, maraming salamat po. Ako po si Dr. Eva Socorro Estrada Arada Sanghel na muling nag-aanyaya po sa inyo na samahan niyo po ako sa susunod na episode ng Kuwentong Alzheimer's at iba pa sa Talk Life Channel. Nagpapasalamat po ako ng taos-puso kay Dr. Ashley Lopez, ang atin pong napakasipag na City Health Officer. Doc, maraming salamat. Sana po ay gumaling na po kayo at ang pagpasasalamat po na ito ay mula sa akin at mula din po sa aking kabiyak na si Teddy Boy at sa kanya rin pong pamilya. Kay Dr. Eileen Lee, maraming salamat po. Dr. Hector Bobby Nazareno, thank you. And may mga pasasalamatan pa akong iba. Sandali lang po hahanapin ko. May konting oras pa ba? Nandito pa kasi may nag-request po kasi ng shout-out. Hindi pwedeng hindi ko sila isa-shoutout. Ito po, shoutout daw po. Ito pa, sa lahat po na bumubuo ng Talk Life Channel, lalong-lalo na kay Angel, salamat. Shoutout daw po kay Marie, ang self-proclaimed na favorite nurse ni Teddy Boy. Sa grupo niyo po dyan sa Davao Doctors, si Marie, Davao Doctors Hospital. Salamat po sa alaga. Salamat po sa panonood at mag-ingat po kayo sa duty ninyo. Maraming salamat. Yaya Rhea, Yaya Joy, Novi, Kuya Peter, maraming salamat. At lalo-lalo na din po sa kay Manang Albert at Manang Carol. Salamat po sa binigay niyong pagkakataon na magkaroon ako ng mental wellness weekend sa inyo pong resort sa Sunset Hill Farm sa Samal. Napaka magandang karanasan po yun. Parang winter, sobrang ginaw. And to my universe, this guy, isang karangalan ang makasama kang muli sa ganitong programa at sa akin pong anak na si Enzo. Mama loves you very much, anak. So mag-ingat ka lang ga. At huwag laging walabas ng bahay para po sa ating lahat kung wala naman pong importanteng sadya. At ito lamang po, papuri at pasasalamat po sa Panginoon sa bawat pagkakataon. Magandang gabi, maraming salamat po. At sabihin natin sabay, sama-sama sa TLC. Okay, maraming salamat po.